We're going to be talking about the Secret Cheeseburger Ledger today, how ISO 20022 has been the plan all along from Swift, how ISO 20023 ties in wood pellets, aka gold, aka the secret ledger and the hidden new dawn. Bear with me. This is going to be an interesting one. And the Chainlink and XRP community go to war. Buckle up. So I'm going to dive right in here and just say, obviously, we're not going to be doing a lot of what I just said, but see a lot of misinterpretations once again of ISO 20022. So I figured I'd break it down kind of as simply as possible for people. Now, I will say distributed ledger certainly ties into what ISO 20022 represents. So kind of a unifying of messaging standards across all these institutions globally. Now, when you hear people say ISO 20022 crypto, they're kind of like taking it a step further, which is kind of an unnecessary step. A lot of the times it's under the purview of hype, which is kind of nonsensical as well. Like all financial institutions pretty much across the entire globe are having to update to ISO 20022 from a messaging standard. Okay. You even you see Swift here, so I will give some credence to this. Like this is an actual position paper from Swift. I'll read this verbatim because unifying things obviously opens things up for distributed ledger technology, for crypto to settle on top of ISO 20022 compliant stuff, but it doesn't mean one cryptocurrency is going to essentially rule the roost. It's actually like the opposite of what's kind of happening. So it's apparent, this is from Swift, that business standards will be key to the successes of distributed ledger technology. So business standards. It's always necessary to gain clarity and consensus about the meaning of shared data in a multi-party business environment, whatever the technology used. Existing standards, principally ISO 20022, will have an important role to play, both as sources of industry definitions and as enablers of interoperability between distributed ledger technologies and existing automation technology, including financial messaging. ISO 20022, like I said before, it's everybody using the same messaging standards. So everybody has to comply. The simplest way to potentially put this is, let's say you have cheeseburgers, every cheeseburger in the world. ISO 20022 equals the global recipe card for messaging, for money, etc. Every cheeseburger or transaction, let's say cheeseburgers or transactions, uses the same ingredients label, meaning I know exactly what is in this cheeseburger before I eat it at every restaurant in the entire world. So for me to say, oh my God, McDonald's is going to become ISO 20022 compliant, McDonald's is going to rule the roost as far as cheeseburgers globally, I'm going to buy McDonald's stock right now. Okay, great. But every single other cryptocurrency that is settled on top of an ISO 20022 compliant platform is going to, I don't understand what people are doing, trying to present these narratives in crypto. Thousands of cryptos can ride on top, but the recipe stays the same. So essentially, it's a unification of messaging, right? And then you can settle cryptos on top. You can settle other assets on top too, as far as, from my understanding of their PAIN settlement, PAIN, on top of these compliant platforms. There's going to be tons of cryptocurrencies that ride on top of ISO 20022 compliant platforms, not just XRP, not just Hedera and HBAR, but any cryptocurrency that is used by a financial institution, because ISO 20022 is going to be this global standard as of November through Swift. They're all going to have to ride on top of ISO 20022 compliant infrastructure. So it's kind of a ridiculous statement to say that one cryptocurrency, namely XRP, because I see that kind of shilled across the board here, is going to rule the roost. XRP is certainly going to win, but it's not going to win because it's riding on top of the same infrastructure that every single other financial institution has to use in the entire world. It's going to win because maybe it's more liquid, maybe it's faster, maybe last mile is more efficient than any other digital asset, or any other asset in general. On top of this, we see, ISO 20022 as this kind of shilled bullshit nonsensical narrative. When we actually see, things like ISO 24165, which are digital token identifiers, which I did a video on 2.5 or 3 years ago on this channel, which you can go to Swift's Knowledge Center and look up all this stuff. Digital token identifiers are actual cryptos. Now, again, this isn't like the craziest thing to even go over, because I believe any digital asset infrastructure provider can literally register their digital token under ISO 24165 using the Digital Token Identifier Foundation. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of cryptos on here as well. Again, the narrative that one crypto is going to rule them all because of open standards or because of industry standards or because of mandated standards is ridiculous and stupid. Start thinking bigger. These institutions, these entities, MT messaging MT messaging basically merges into the new messaging standard through Swift, which is MX, which is ISO 20022 in November. This stuff has been out there for a while. So I did like a video like in May, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to bring up the MX transition through Swift. And it's not that big of a deal because it's not new. It's publicly accessible information. The video got to like 63,000 views because it's very apparent that people thought that was super hypey and nobody'd seen that. Meanwhile, it's like public information. So no wonder why people can put ridiculously dumb tweets or ridiculously dumb content out there, low-hanging fruit that is not educating anybody, and get 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 likes without doing any work. We're not educating people in this space. ISO 20022 is a messaging standard. It is a global messaging standard. Swift goes live with it, and all the entities within, November of this year. It's been in the works for years, literally years. All of these institutions are going to be ISO 20022. The platforms are going to have to meet the messaging standard. Any crypto that settles on top or throughout these institutions through payment messaging is going to settle on top of ISO 20022 compliant platforms. It's not just going to be one crypto. That's kind of, it like literally defeats the purpose. Bitcoin has been settled on top of ISO 20022 compliance through the XTC network, and I want to say it was Impel like years ago. So I don't know, guys. Anyways, I'm going to get off my soapbox here. I will say that I have seen even some product owners at some of these banking entities using the same type of narratives here. However, they're kind of, I guess they're eliminating like the red tape of me saying, hey, there's no ISO 20022 compliant cryptos. There's ISO 20022 compliant messaging or platforms built on top of the standard. I've seen it a couple of times where you actually do have individuals mentioning cryptos as being compliant. However, still, like I just described, even this person's technically not correct. I get it. We're getting into semantics. But at the end of the day, the picture I'm trying to present to you is these platforms are going to be ISO 20022 compliant. It's awesome that we see Algo, ADA, HBAR, XDC, XRP, XLM, Quant, Miota, or IOTA as being listed in some of these documents right now. But any of these cryptocurrency assets that are integrated within these platforms are going to be able to be settled on top of the compliant infrastructure. So it's like a ridiculous, I'm trying to get the point across that it's a ridiculous narrative to shill just to get views or likes or whatever, or to say my asset's going to go to whatever. It's stupid. It's stupidity. Anyways, this is a UBS document I think that I found tail end of last year. I've stated many times there are no ISO 20022 cryptos, though platforms can meet messaging compliance, and then cryptos can settle on top of those compliant infrastructures. However, the UBS product owner for digital invoicing / payment software and former chair of Payments Committee Switzerland at 6 claims otherwise in this document from April. Cryptos that rely on ISO 20022 include Algo, ADA, HBAR, XDC, XRP, XLM, Quant, Miota. I am probably not even making an assumption. I'll just state that the UBS product owner is probably talking about platforms that are ISO 20022 compliant, that these cryptos can settle on top of. For example, I guarantee you a lot of, and I know it used to be called RippleNet, but now it's Ripple Payments kind of as a whole. Ripple Payments, much of Ripple Payments, I'm assuming, is ISO 20022 compliant, the infrastructure, the messaging infrastructure. Same thing with Hedera and HBAR. I found the documents. Let's see if I can find it here. There's an MTech documents here. Let me see if I can find it. Decoding CBDCs. Yeah. So this is that document that was co-authored by Ripple and Hedera back in the day. This is probably a few years ago. The report series partners are Ripple, Hedera, Prosper US, blah, 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 blah. A bunch of stuff about the XRP ledger. This is actually, I think, one of the first areas that I forget what the information was on here that this shared, but something about the XRPL private end of things. Anyways, on here is where you see that Hedera is ISO 20022 compliant, but this is through MTEX CBDC infrastructure. DLT networks that can currently be used with MTEX CBDC infrastructure. This is a few years ago. Hedera consensus service. So again, you're not just having things like even like the cryptos themselves being, on top of ISO 20022 compliant stuff. You're having like HCS, so timestamps and auditability and all the other things, which is Hedera consensus service. Ripple's central bank digital currency platform, permissioned sidechain of the XRP ledger. This is a couple of years ago. ISO 20022 interoperable, yes. Codify payments. I'm not going to dig into Codify right now because I'm not going to waste my time. ISO 20022 interoperable, yes. Jaceki and Deverin, yes. Prosper Coin, yes. Anyways, all of these banking institutions, any cryptos settling on top of ISO 20022 compliant infrastructure, I pulled up ISO 20023 because I was going to go over storage of wood pellets in residential and small scale applications, but I don't find that funny now. I thought it was going to be funny before this. Anyways, Swift's position paper, you can see what it's talking about right here, with essentially ISO 20022 and standardization of messaging, setting up for things like interoperability of standards between distributed ledgers. And I'm assuming turning certain things on because all of these different banking entities, institutions are going to be using the same language now. Makes it much easier to streamline payments and settlements once you have messaging nailed out, right? Kind of makes sense. But it has nothing to do with any individual asset ruling them all. It is so ISO 20022 is like if every restaurant in the world had to print the same standardized ingredient label on every cheeseburger wrapper. Every transaction uses the same ingredient label. Ingredients, ISO 20022. That shouldn't be in the burger. That should just be like pain mustard on top because it's painful watching the ISO 20022 shit. Terraform co-founder Do Kwon pleads guilty over $40 billion crypto collapse. Trump firm announces $1.5 billion digital coin deal. I think the other notable and interesting thing that I've seen over the past couple of days here is this like battle between the Chainlink and XRP. I don't know if it's the XRP community or army, but one of them. And I don't know. I always find it interesting. Like, I'm pretty sure Ripple adopted Chainlink's data standards, just like Hedera adopted Chainlink's data standards. Chainlink also sitting on the governing council of Hedera. So like when I see arguments spinning up off the back end between these communities, it's like, oh no, XRP's better. And, you have people, which is like, it's like a very like counterproductive thing, I guess, to like just blatantly argue with people. Whether XRP is better or whether Chainlink's better. It's like the same thing whenever you see those Twitter posts that are like, if you could only invest in these two assets with $1,000, which ones would you invest in? And the entire purpose of that post is to get people pissed off and to engage with the post itself. Like, we actually have the option to invest in multiple things. It's kind of the entire purpose of crypto. The decentralization, democratization of finance, right? We're not walled outside of crypto right now. We actually have the ability to play on or to operate on somewhat of a level playing field, even though there's still a lot of insider crap going on in crypto. That's what makes crypto so awesome and beautiful, right? We have the choice to do multiple things. So when I see arguments like that are just blatant, crazy, stupid arguments, it sounds to me like a huge waste of time instead of just building shit that people use. Because last time I checked, 90 to 95% of the world still wasn't here yet. And if we're arguing amongst ourselves, what the hell are we doing? Because we're certainly not growing this space. Huge announcement coming from Chainlink, though, as I've seen multiple announcements coming out of the Chainlink ecosystem over the past couple of years here. ICE data integration and Chainlink Reserve fuel next wave of tokenized market growth. The collaboration providing over 2,000 applications with access to trusted market data from more than 300 global exchanges. They're integrating institutional grade Forex and metals pricing data onto blockchain networks, which is obviously massive. It has to deal with the convergence of all of these traditional markets into the digital markets. If you really want to go and take, I haven't read through this whole thing, but I was just looking up some resources. If you want to look up and compare Chainlink versus XRPL, go ahead and do it. You can go on Masara and do it if you want to. There's that document that showcased some of the ISO 20022 platforms, Ripple, Hedera, ecosystem type stuff. All right, so now I want to bring this up too, since there was like a XRPL / Chainlink battle, I guess. Again, like I'm pretty sure, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, like Ripple integrated Chainlink standard. Like this was like in January, I think. So like, let's all argue. I thought this was pretty big because obviously we see JP Morgan back and forth and shifting narratives for a long time about crypto. I believe that this was the announcement that was kind of the first time that we had settlement of some of the JP Morgan blockchain stuff happening across public distributed ledger, public blockchain rails, which had to do with Chainlink. So shout out there. And then DTCC, which we've talked about forever. And I brought this up in a different video. You want to talk about like confirmation and stuff. DTCC specifically calling out Chainlink, cross-chain interoperability protocol. They use this in the Smart Nav pilot. Chainlink CCIP also in the White House report. So anyways, people are going to argue. People are going to show narratives, and that's great. ISO 20022 is going to continue to be a narrative for years, even after Swift migrates to MX, which is the ISO 20022 aspect in November of this year. And all these institutions go on. People are going to start saying Delta, 1 year, 2 year Delta, whatever. At the end of the day, crypto, blockchain, distributed ledger are just a more efficient technology that are going to start taking market share, either A, away from traditional entities, or B, traditional entities, as we've all known, are going to start integrating. And these announcements are just, skimming the water here that we've seen over this past 18 months. If I checked RWAs tokenized right now, we're probably still sitting around $30 billion on RWA.xyz. That is a drop in the bucket. It's not even a drop in the bucket. It's a miss in the bucket. I fervently believe that we're going to see tens, hundreds of trillions of dollars of assets tokenized, assets that we're not even thinking are assets right now, being tokenized. We live in a very attention-driven economy right now. My attention, your attention is very valuable. We just so happen to be kept outside of that value loop right now. It's why platforms like Twitter and X are free. It's why platforms like YouTube are free. However, you get to watch ads, right? But you don't get any kickback from what ads you watch right now, do you? No, you don't. In the future, I believe that our attention span is a real world asset that we actually get to take part in that monetization of, which we should. And I don't know. We're just dropping, literally just scraping the surface here. Anyways, just did a podcast today out of Genfinity, not financial advice. Full disclaimer, Genfinity has media relationships with many of the entities that we have on board, Hashgraph Association, Hedera, Hashgraph, Algorand, XTC, Constellation, all these ecosystems we work with and do podcasts and articles and all this stuff. But we did a $1 million hackathon operations track today. So Hashgraph Association and Exponential Science Foundation, along with some other bigger entities that are sponsoring this, are putting on a $1 million hackathon. You can go to HederaHacks.com, I believe. And this was kind of the operations track that we did. We did the AI track a couple of weeks ago and talked about that. This is like open right now. A huge opportunity, though, for developers, obviously, and had two different entities on, Evercity and Shamba Records, talking about ESG, transforming client agriculture and supply chain, utilizing Hashgraph, and did a big interview with Ben Jorgensen, CEO of Constellation, a couple days ago as well. These guys, from a tech standpoint, from Constellation standpoint, have been knocking it out of the park over the past year and a half. Metagraphs went live. So essentially like, unique layer 1 networks built on top of a layer 0 at the tail end of 2023. And they have their decks coming out over the next couple of weeks there. So not financial advice, but it'll be interesting to watch what happens. And I know that these guys are going to the Base on-chain summit. Forgot to mention, I saw that announcement come out of Base, which I think is huge, and kind of the DEX and DeFi stuff that you're going to be able to do on Base now, which I think is absolutely massive. And yeah, 1.5 million article reads on genfinity.io, by the way, which I think is We've been doing this since 2021. I don't even think the current version of the website was up since 2021. So probably like, let's say some point in 2022, almost 700 articles, which is pretty wild. When we've done those deep dives into like DTCC and stuff, and let me see. We've done these deep dives into like DTCC and stuff. We've done interviews with Boston Consulting Group and Deloitte and all these other entities. I'm going to try to get better at doing these videos because like when I can find some of this deep dive, like the XRP and Stellar stuff through, and Hedera was mentioned and all these others. Here's the XRP and Stellar one. This one got like crazy views, I was like really surprised about. 9,000 reads, which is crazy. We usually are like around 1,000, sometimes 2,000. But I feel like deep diving content and then like maybe breaking it while also kind of reading through like a much shorter, some of these documents that you find when you deep dive stuff are like 70, 80, like patents are like 100 pages long sometimes. Breaking it down into an easily digestible way and kind of going from there. Before I hop, I wanted to mention we have a podcast with Dr. Lehman Baird. Let me find this. There we go. We have a DREC Alliance podcast this Thursday. It's going to be at least one, if not two, of the co-founders of Multiverse X. Dr. Lehman Baird, obviously, co-founder of Hedera, author of the Hashgraph Distributed Consensus Algorithm. You guys know who Lehman Baird is, I'm sure. So Multiverse X, Dr. Lehman Baird, Mei Chan, CEO of Hashpack. So Hedera's leading wallet by far, like 98% of the Hedera ecosystem uses Hashpack, as well as operations and marketing head at Algorand Foundation, Mark. So that should be a really cool podcast. Algorand, Hedera, Hashpack, and Multiverse X. Multiverse X recently joined DREC like over the past month and a half or 2 months or so. So anyways, ISO 20022, global messaging standard, has nothing to do with an individual crypto. And I get that certain individuals or entities say otherwise, but they're skipping a step here. You need to have compliant infrastructure that's ISO 20022 compliant. Then you can settle, I'm sure, whatever you want to on top of that, whether it's crypto or fiat or whatever. But at the end of the day, to say that one cryptocurrency rules the roost because a platform it runs on is ISO 20022 compliant misses the point entirely of what crypto represents, what blockchain is about to do in distributed ledger, and how all of these markets kind of come on chain. They're going to use the best asset for the best situation. These networks, at some point, they're going to nail interoperability. You're going to have pathfinding for liquidity, just like was it multi-hop and stuff through on-demand liquidity, the Ripple stuff a while ago. But that's going to happen across these networks. It's not just going to happen in one silo. You're going to have assets that win out in certain situations. Who knows? I guarantee you Ripple has built crazy liquidity corridors for like last mile payments and exotic corridors, or last mile settlements, I should say, over the past handful of years. I would not be surprised to see Ripple potentially win a lot of that market share once this stuff goes online here. I've had the opportunity to interview so many of these people in different countries. We just interviewed a couple of these individuals or one of the entities was from Africa, talking about how, their platform alone is like so forward thinking. They used to have to wait like days and days and days for farmers to be able to get paid for shipments. And now you're within a minute. Liquidity is going to play a big part in that, like obviously. So especially with the rise of agentic AI. I mean, agentic AI streamlining these workflows and streamlining payments and settlements on top of all of the stuff that we're already seeing with crypto and blockchain is going to be wild to witness. And I really do, like I said, I believe that the majority of real world assets get tokenized, the vast majority. And I think that there's assets that we're not even considering right now, because now it's the low hanging fruit treasuries and bonds and all this stuff. We haven't even scratched the surface with real estate, which is like a $300 to $400 trillion industry. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm losing my voice. I will talk to you when I talk to you. This is my first video ever standing. So here we are standing because of my bad back, but I'll see you guys when I see you. All right, later.